Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into a topic that is, well, profoundly personal for so many families: where and how babies sleep. It's an area often filled with strong opinions, a lot of conflicting advice, and even, fear. But our mission today is to cut through all that noise and get straight to the evidence. Specifically, we're doing a deep dive into the Academy of Breastfeeding Medicine's protocol, #6, focusing on its 2019 revision. This protocol offers incredibly comprehensive, evidence-based recommendations on bed sharing and breastfeeding. So for those of you preparing for your IBCLC exam, this is going to be an invaluable resource to distill all the crucial information. But truly, if you're a parent, a caregiver, or just someone seeking real clarity on infant sleep, this deep dive is absolutely for you. We're going to summarize the entire bed sharing protocol, making sure we don't miss any critical details, and then we're going to put all that knowledge to the test with some IBCLC exam-style clinical case-based questions. So if you're ready to get well-informed quickly and thoroughly, grab a notepad because, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's begin by challenging a common perception. You might hear a lot of warnings about bed sharing, but the reality is it's incredibly prevalent, and often it's unplanned. The protocol highlights that like 20–25% of infants under 3 months in the US and UK share a bed at least some nights.
Right.
And if you look at Western societies broadly, over 30% of infants will do so at some point in their first 3 months. The protocol even notes these figures might be underreported due to the lingering stigma around the practice.
Yeah, that stigma is a real issue. And what's truly fascinating here is how deeply rooted this practice is in human biology and evolution. Think about it. Human milk is designed for rapid digestion. Babies need frequent feeds, sometimes 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. And managing that kind of frequency is incredibly difficult if the infant isn't in close contact with their caregiver. Anthropological research really underscores this, showing that parent-infant bed sharing with breastfeeding actually represents the human evolutionary norm. It's kind of how we've adapted and thrived for millennia.
And parents report so many varied reasons for this close proximity. It's definitely not just about convenience, although that's a factor, right?
Absolutely. There are deeply rooted cultural or religious beliefs, those physiological links between lactation and nighttime breastfeeding, and that innate biological drive for close contact that both parents and babies feel.
It just makes sense. It genuinely makes nighttime care easier, allows parents to monitor their infant more closely, provides comfort.
And yes, sometimes it's simply unintentional bed sharing when an exhausted parent falls asleep, which happens a lot.
Totally. It's also important to note that breastfeeding mothers form the largest group of bed sharers.
Which brings us to a really important concept introduced in the protocol: breast sleeping.
Breast sleeping, okay.
Yeah, this term isn't casual. It's defined as a biologically based model of sustained contact between mother and infant, starting immediately after birth, where sleeping and breastfeeding are inextricably combined. But the crucial caveat here is that this applies assuming no hazardous risk factors are present. That's key.
Got it. No hazardous risk factors.
Exactly. This concept really highlights the critical role of immediate and sustained maternal contact for optimal breastfeeding outcomes.
Okay, so given how widespread and biologically ingrained this practice is, you might be asking, what are the benefits? And this is where the protocol offers some truly fascinating insights for both mother and baby. Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's not just about convenience. There's some significant advantages.
Absolutely. For the baby, the advantages are quite remarkable. First, there's what's often called the protective C position, or the cuddle curl.
The C position, I've heard of that.
Right. Breastfeeding mothers instinctively adopt this characteristic position, curling around their infants. This creates a constrained, very specific sleep space. The mother's arm is typically above the baby's head, preventing upward movement into pillows, and her knees are tucked under the baby's feet, preventing downward movement.
Okay. So like a little protector shell.
Precisely. The baby is positioned flat on their back on the firm mattress, right next to the mother's breasts for easy feeding. This precise position actually protects them from potential physiological stressors like airway covering and overheating.
So it's not just about proximity, but this instinctive positioning by the breastfeeding mother that creates a truly unique protective zone.
That's fascinating. It implies a biological safeguarding mechanism, not just a casual sleep arrangement.
Exactly. And beyond the physical positioning, breast sleeping infants also spend less time in deep sleep stages 3 to 4, and more time in lighter sleep, stages 1 to 2.
Lighter sleep, why is that an advantage?
Well, this lighter sleep facilitates rapid awakening, which can help them terminate apneas or pauses in breathing. There's also the possible influence of maternal care on infant regulatory responses, potentially even affecting epigenetic responses to stress down the line.
Wow. Okay. And for the mother, what are the advantages there? They seem just as compelling.
They really are. Bed sharing is associated with significantly increased breastfeeding. We're talking more frequent nighttime feeds, which directly promotes milk production, and critically, more months of breastfeeding duration and exclusivity.
Right.
Some studies show bed sharers can have double or even triple the number of breastfeeding sessions compared to solitary sleepers. Double or triple. That's huge for milk supply.
It is, and this is truly counterintuitive for many parents. Despite these more frequent awakenings for feeds, breastfeeding, bed-sharing mothers often report improved maternal sleep.
Wait, hold on. Even with more frequent awakenings for feeds, the mother actually gets better sleep overall. That completely goes against what I think most new parents assume.
I know, it sounds backwards, right? But they tend to be awake for shorter periods and fall back to sleep more rapidly, so it leads to greater overall sleep duration compared to non-bed-sharing mothers.
Okay, can you elaborate on the mechanism there? Is it about the quality of falling back asleep? Or
It's primarily about the efficiency of falling back asleep. When the baby is right there, the mother doesn't have to fully rouse herself, get out of bed, go to a crib, pick up the baby, feed, and then go through the whole process of getting back to sleep.
makes sense.
Yeah, the immediate proximity means the interruptions are shorter and less disruptive, allowing for quicker transitions back into sleep, even if those transitions happen more often. It's a strategy, really, to reduce the physical and social costs of nighttime care, like severe sleep disruption.
Okay, so putting all these pieces together, what's the critical takeaway here? It sounds like the advice to simply avoid bed sharing can actually undermine breastfeeding goals.
It absolutely can.
And, paradoxically, it may even increase the risk of parents sleeping in far more unsafe environments, like sofas or armchairs, if they fall asleep unintentionally while trying so hard to avoid the bed.
Exactly. That's a major concern highlighted in the protocol.
Now, the biggest question on every parent's mind, and rightly so, when we talk about infant sleep, is sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDs. It's a concern that often leads to strong, often fearful advice. But let's cut through the generalities and look at the evidence with precision.
It's vital to be very precise with definitions when discussing infant deaths, especially for those of you studying for the IBCLC exam. So, SIDS, R95, is the sudden death of an infant that remains unexplained even after a full investigation, case review, autopsy, death scene investigation.
Okay, unexplained.
SIDS. Then there's accidental suffocation or strangulation in bed, ASSB, W75. This is when death is specifically due to asphyxia, strangulation, or suffocation in a bed, crib, sofa, or armchair. So there's a clear mechanical cause found.
ASAP. Got
And
it.
finally, sudden unexpected infant death, SE8 or SUATI, is an overarching term for all unexpected infant deaths, whether they remain unexplained like SIDS or a full causal explanation like ASSB is eventually found.
So SEID is the umbrella term.
Exactly. Understanding these distinctions is crucial for accurate data, especially for researchers and professionals, because it helps us see the true picture. For international comparisons, sometimes a proxy measure is used, combining codes like R95, R99, and W75, just because how these deaths are coded can shift over time. And this is the core finding of the protocol, a point that really challenges some common misconceptions. Existing evidence does not support the conclusion that bed sharing among breastfeeding infants, breast sleeping, causes SIDS in the absence of known hazards.
Say that again. That seems really important.
Existing evidence does not support the conclusion that bed sharing among breastfeeding infants causes SIDS in the absence of known hazards. Accidental suffocation death is extremely rare among bed sharing breastfeeding infants when hazardous circumstances are absent.
But this distinction is absolutely key. So what are these known hazards that the protocol identifies, the things that do increase risk?
Right. These are the specific risk factors or circumstances that do significantly increase the risk of SIDs and fatal sleeping accidents, either on their own or when combined with bed sharing. The protocol details these quite clearly. First, and this is a big one, sharing a sofa or armchair with a sleeping adult.
Okay, sofas and armchairs are out.
Definitely out. This carries an alarming 18-fold increased risk, especially when combined with alcohol impairment, meaning more than 2 units of alcohol within 24 hours or any drug use.
18-fold. Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. Other critical hazards include an infant sleeping next to an adult impaired by alcohol or drugs, Also, an infant sleeping next to an adult who smokes or where there's tobacco exposure during pregnancy.
Smoking is another major one.
Huge. This alone carries a fourfold increased risk. And we're not just talking about direct smoke, but clothing or objects that smell of smoke, what we call third-hand smoke. That lingering chemical residue can still pose a risk.
Third-hand smoke. Okay, what else?
Additionally, the infant sleeping in the prone or stomach position is a significant hazard. The protocol also notes that infants never initiating breastfeeding, meaning formula feeding, is associated with a markedly increased SIDS risk.
So breastfeeding itself is protective.
Very much so. Sleeping on soft bedding, like thick covers, duvets, comforters, or pillows that could cause accidental head covering or asphyxiation is another danger. And finally, being born preterm or of low birth weight also increases risk.
That's a clear list of hazards. Which brings us to a fascinating point about differing public policy recommendations. You see countries like the US, Canada, and Germany tending to advise against bed sharing altogether, often with very strong messaging.
Right, a kind of blanket prohibition.
Exactly. But then the UK and Australia take a different approach. They acknowledge bed sharing occurs and instead focus on educating parents about specific hazards and how to mitigate them.
And this difference is really interesting when you look at the outcomes. The U.S. proxy SIDS rate has been almost unchanged despite a strict no bed sharing policy, while the UK's rate has actually fallen over the past decade.
Fallen, even though they don't ban it.
Precisely. In the UK, parents are educated about safe bed sharing. This raises an important question. Does a blanket ban actually hinder honest, non-judgmental counseling?
It seems like it could.
The issue of stigmatization is very real. It can prevent parents from disclosing their actual sleep practices, which in turn prohibits effective counseling. If a parent is afraid of judgment, they won't ask for the information that could save their baby's life.
That's incredibly compelling. The UK's approach, focusing on harm reduction within bed sharing, sees rates fall, while the US's blanket ban hasn't moved the needle. Are there specific policy learnings or communication strategies from the UK that maybe we in other countries could adapt, especially considering that stigma?
Absolutely. I think the key learning is that parents will bed share intentionally or unintentionally for all those reasons we discussed: biology, convenience, culture, exhaustion. So instead of just a don't do it message, which often leads to unsafe practices happening in secret.
Like falling asleep on the sofa.
Exactly. The UK's focus on, if you do bed share, do it safely, empowers parents with actionable information. It's about providing nuanced, empathetic guidance rather than just a prohibition. It acknowledges reality.
And it's also vital to acknowledge, as the protocol does, the overlap of many hazardous circumstances we've discussed with broader societal challenges like poverty, structural racism, and legacies of historical trauma.
Yes, that's a critical point. Issues such as higher rates of antenatal smoking, alcohol use, preterm birth, poor prenatal care, and lack of breastfeeding support are often interconnected with the very conditions that can make bed sharing more hazardous. It's not just individual choice. There are systemic factors at play.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving from the what if and the risks to the what to do, let's get into the practical, evidence-based recommendations for safe sleep. This is truly the core of the protocol and so vital for your practice, especially for those pursuing the IBCLC.
Right. The overarching recommendation is clear. All families should be counseled about safe sleep because bed sharing is likely to happen whether it's intended or not. You just have to assume it might. Healthcare providers should use open-ended questions early in the perinatal course and continuously throughout infancy, including as many caregivers as possible.
Like what kind of questions?
Things like, what are your plans for where your baby will sleep? What does that sleep area look like? Or even gently, does your baby ever end up in bed with you? This approach helps you genuinely understand families' lived experiences and fosters non-judgmental counseling, which builds trust. It's also crucial to screen families at increased risk of infant death with bed sharing. So, infants born preterm, those with antenatal tobacco exposure, families living with smokers, or those living with people who consume alcohol or drugs and might fall asleep with the infant.
What do you do if you identify those risks? Just tell them absolutely no bed sharing.
Well, here's the nuanced part. Even for these parents, for whom bed sharing should be discouraged due to those hazardous conditions, information and counseling about safe bed sharing should still be provided.
Even if it's high risk, why?
Because you have to assume parents may bed share anyway, even unintentionally due to exhaustion. So you discuss how to make sleep areas as safe as possible and how to minimize hazardous circumstances even if they can't be fully eliminated. It's about harm reduction.
That's such an important point about the reality of parental exhaustion. Many parents even if advised against it, might fall asleep with their baby out of sheer fatigue. How do we ensure our counseling acknowledges that reality without compromising safety?
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? And it comes back to that non-judgmental approach. Instead of just saying, never bed share, you might say something like, we understand that sometimes parents, especially when exhausted, might unintentionally fall asleep with their baby. If that happens, or if you are planning to bed share, here are the absolute critical things you need to know to make it as safe as possible.
Right, shifting from prohibition to empowerment.
Exactly. Offering practical, life-saving advice for real-world scenarios.
Okay, now let's dive into the specific elements of safe bed sharing advice, presented in order of importance based on evidence strength. What's number one?
Number one, absolutely critical. Never sleep with infants on a sofa, armchair, or any unsuitable surface, including a pillow. Just don't.
Okay, so from chair, definitely out. What's next?
Place infants to sleep away from any person impaired by alcohol or drugs. This is non-negotiable.
Makes sense. And positioning.
Always place infants supine for sleep on their back. Every single time. Back to sleep.
Back to sleep. Got it.
And smoking. Place infants to sleep away from secondhand smoke, away from a caregiver who routinely smokes, and from clothing or objects that smell of third-hand smoke. The protocol notes that if the mother herself smokes, avoiding this exposure might be impossible, which just further emphasizes the significant risk smoking adds.
Okay, continuing with the specifics for the bed environment itself.
Right. The bed should be away from walls and furniture to prevent wedging of the infant's head or body. You don't want them getting trapped.
No gaps.
No gaps. The bed surface should be firm, just like with a crib. No memory foam, no water beds, and without thick covers like duvets or dunas, excess pillows, or other objects that could cause accidental head covering and asphyxiation. Think clear, flat, firm surface.
Clear, flat, firm, like a crib mattress, basically.
Pretty much. Also, the infant should not be left alone on an adult bed, ever.
Right. And the seat position we talked about.
Yes. An incredibly important element is the adoption of the C position, or cuddle curl. This is the optimal, safe sleeping position. Infant's head across from the adult's breast, adult's legs and arms, curled around the infant, infant on their back away from the adult's pillow.
And speaking of pillows,
place your baby at the level of your breast, not next to your face or on a pillow. Keep pillows well away from the baby. Also, do not attach a guardrail to an adult bed. Those can create entrapment hazards.
okay. Any other physical setup tips?
One final suggestion is consider putting your mattress on the floor to eliminate the risk of falls, especially as the baby gets older and more mobile.
Mattress on the floor. Interesting. Okay, so that's the advice for generally safe bed sharing. What about those families where bed sharing is considered high risk due to those factors like prematurity or smoking?
For those situations, certain risk minimization strategies are recommended. First and foremost, increased promotion and support of breastfeeding, because breastfeeding itself is inherently protective against SIDS.
Okay, support breastfeeding even more.
Definitely. Also, referral for smoking cessation and alcohol and or drug treatment is vital if those are factors, and enhanced repeated multimodal messaging about the specific risks of sofa sharing and bed sharing when hazardous factors are present. Use text, email, video, social media, whatever it takes to get the message through clearly and repeatedly.
What about physical devices?
Yes. The protocol suggests considering sidecars or in-bed devices, things like the wakura, that's a traditional New Zealand Maori woven flax bassinet, or the pepi potty, which is a simple polypropylene box.
Have those help?
They provide a separate sleeping space right there on the mattress, very close to the mother. They've been associated with markedly increased breastfeeding rates while providing a defined, safer space within the bed environment.
Interesting. So, a way to keep proximity but add a barrier?
Exactly. It's also important to emphasize room sharing where and when bed sharing cannot be done safely. Room sharing itself reduces SID's risk significantly. And finally, take into account the importance of the partner and other support persons' involvement in the infant's sleep. Everyone caring for the baby needs to know the safety guidelines.
Right. It's not just the mother.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if bed sharing just isn't the right choice for a family or isn't safe due to specific circumstances? It's equally important to know how to be safe even when not bed sharing, right?
Absolutely. The protocol also reinforces key safe sleep practices regardless of bed sharing status, which are crucial for all families. Many are similar. Always place your baby on their back to sleep.
Back to sleep always.
Always. Keep your baby in your room near your bed, practicing room sharing ideally for at least the first 6 months. You can also consider using a bassinet or infant bed that attaches to your bed, often called a co-sleeper or sidecar, which gives close proximity without sharing the exact sleep surface.
And the sleep space itself.
After feeding, always put your baby in a clear, flat space. And critically, do not put your baby in a baby bed with cushioned sides, like bumpers. Those can pose a suffocation risk. Clear, flat, firm is the mantra for any infant sleep space.
Clear, flat, firm. Got it. All right, we've unpacked a lot of critical information today covering the breadth of the ABM protocol, #6. Now, for those of you aiming to put this into practice, especially for the IBCLC exam, let's really test that understanding with some real-world clinical scenarios.
Yeah, this section is designed to help you synthesize the information. Think. How would you counsel a family, or what would be your next step in these situations? We'll walk through about 10 multiple-choice clinical case-based questions, similar to what you might encounter on the IBCLC exam.
Okay, let's do it. First scenario. A new mother reports to you that she's so exhausted, she frequently falls asleep with her baby on the sofa while feeding. What's the most critical piece of advice you should give her in this situation? A. Emphasize room sharing. B. Counsel about the 18-fold increased risk of sofa sharing, especially when coupled with impairment. C. Encourage exclusive breastfeeding. Or D. Suggest a sidecar bassinet.
Okay, the most critical piece of advice here is definitely B. The protocol clearly states that sofa sharing carries that massive 18-fold increased risk, especially with alcohol impairment, making it one of the most hazardous circumstances.
So address the biggest danger first.
Exactly. While room sharing, breastfeeding, and sidecars are generally good things, addressing this immediate, very high-risk behavior is absolutely paramount for the baby's safety right now.
Makes sense. Okay, next case. Parents are bed sharing and the mother smokes. What's the primary safe sleep recommendation to address this specific hazard? A. Ensure the baby is always on their back. B. Use a firm mattress. C. Place infant to sleep away from a caregiver who routinely smokes and clothing that smells of smoke. Or D. Encourage the C position.
The correct answer here is C. Placing the infant away from a caregiver who routinely smokes or objects smelling of third-hand smoke directly addresses that major risk factor. We talked about the 4-fold increased risk associated with smoking and bed sharing.
So targeting the specific hazard again.
Right. While A, B, and D are all essential safe sleep practices in general, C is the one that targets the specific hazard presented in the scenario, the smoking.
Got it. Here's another one. A mother wants to bed share but is worried about seeds. She breastfeeds exclusively. What can you tell her about the SIDS risk in non-hazardous bed sharing? A. Bed sharing always causes a 3-fold increased risk of SIDS. B. There's no evidence that bed sharing among breastfeeding infants causes SIDS in the absence of known hazards. C. She must avoid bed sharing if her infant is under 3 months. Or D. SIDS risk is only reduced if the infant sleeps alone in a crib.
The answer here is B. This is a direct quote, essentially, from the protocol's core finding. Existing evidence does not support the conclusion that bed sharing among breastfeeding infants, i.e. breast sleeping, causes sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, in the absence of known hazards.
That's such a key takeaway.
It really is. It emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between hazardous and non-hazardous bed sharing, especially for breastfeeding families.
Okay, moving on. A father who occasionally drinks alcohol wants to bed share with his 2-month-old infant. What is the most important counseling point you should make? A. Ensure the infant is on a firm surface. B. The infant should not be left alone on the adult bed. C. He should not sleep with the infant if impaired by alcohol. Or D. Encourage skin-to-skin contact.
The most important counseling point is C. Sleeping next to an adult impaired by alcohol or drugs is explicitly listed as a significant hazardous risk factor that markedly increases the risk of SIDS and fatal sleeping accidents.
Even if it's just occasional drinking.
The guideline usually refers to impairment, often quantified as more than 2 drinks, but any impairment poses a risk. So, counseling him not to sleep with the infant if impaired is critical. Other options are good advice, but C addresses the immediate danger in this scenario.
Right. Okay, our 5th question. A new mother asks how to ensure her baby is safe while bed sharing and breastfeeding. She shows you her current setup. She has a soft duvet, 2 large pillows near the baby's head, and the bed is pushed against a wall. What should be your first pieces of advice? A. Adopt the C position and place the baby at breast level. B. Remove thick covers and excess pillows and move the bed away from the wall. C. Emphasize that the infant should always be on their back. Or D. Discuss the benefits of increased breastfeeding frequency.
The most immediate and critical advice is B, remove the hazards first. The protocol lists soft bedding, thick covers, excess pillows, and the bed being too close to walls or furniture as specific direct hazards that can cause suffocation or wedging.
So fix the environment before positioning.
Exactly. Addressing these environmental risks first is paramount for immediate safety. Then you can talk about positioning like the C-curl.
Gotcha. Scenario 6. A mother of a preterm infant wishes to bed share for ease of breastfeeding. She does not smoke or drink. What is an appropriate risk minimization strategy in this case? A. Advise strict solitary sleep for the first 6 months. B. Promote and support breastfeeding and consider an in-bed device like a wahakura or pee-pee pod. C. Tell her bed sharing is completely safe as long as she breastfeeds. Or D. Focus only on placing the infant on their back.
The best approach here is B. Being born preterm is a known risk factor, meaning bed sharing is higher risk in this scenario, even without smoking or drinking. While breastfeeding is protective, it doesn't completely negate the preterm risk.
So you need extra strategies.
Right. Risk minimization strategies, as discussed in the protocol, include strongly promoting and supporting breastfeeding and considering those in-bed devices like the wahakura or pee-pee pod. They provide a separate, defined, safe space within the bed, maintaining close proximity while mitigating some of the direct risks associated with prematurity. A is too rigid, C is inaccurate, and D is insufficient on its own.
Okay, next. You are counseling a family and want to understand their current sleep practices without judgment. Which of these open-ended questions would be most effective? A. You aren't bed sharing, are you? B. Do you understand the risks of bed sharing? C. What are your plans for where your baby will sleep? Or D. Why do you choose to bed share?
The protocol explicitly recommends C, or questions like it. What are your plans for where your baby will sleep? It's open-ended, non-leading, and encourages families to share their plans and experiences freely without feeling interrogated or judged.
A and B sound judgmental, and D might put them on the defensive.
Exactly. C is the best way to open a trusting, non-judgmental conversation, which is essential for effective counseling.
Okay, question number 8. A mother complains of disrupted sleep due to frequent nighttime breastfeeding. She's not currently bed sharing and is considering stopping breastfeeding because of the sleep disruption. What benefit of breast sleeping could you highlight to her? A. Breast sleeping mothers are awake for shorter periods and fall back to sleep more rapidly, leading to greater overall sleep duration. B. Breast sleeping infants sleep more deeply, so mothers are less disturbed. C. Breast sleeping reduces the total number of nighttime feeds. Or D. Breast sleeping eliminates the need for any awakenings.
The correct answer is this directly addresses her concern about sleep disruption. As we discussed, the protocol states that despite more frequent awakenings for feeds, breastfeeding bed-sharing mothers often get more overall sleep because they're awake for shorter periods and fall back asleep faster.
So it directly counters her reason for wanting to stop.
Precisely. B is incorrect, they sleep lighter. C is incorrect, it often increases feeds. And D is definitely incorrect. It directly speaks to her challenge by highlighting a potential solution within continued breastfeeding if done safely.
Okay, almost there. Penultimate question. Consider this. An exhausted mother is considering allowing her older child, who is 5 years old, to sleep in the bed with her and her 3-month-old infant. What specific advice from the protocol is most relevant here? A. Multiple bed shares are always unsafe. B. There is insufficient evidence to make recommendations on multiple bed sharers, but the infant should not be left alone on an adult bed. C. The C position protects against multiple bed sharers. Or D. This is only risky if the older child smokes.
The protocol actually addresses this, and the answer is B. It explicitly acknowledges that there is insufficient evidence to make recommendations on multiple bed sharers or the position of the infant in bed with respect to both parents in the absence of hazardous circumstances. So we can't say it's definitively safe or unsafe based on current evidence, but it also clearly states that the infant should not be left alone on an adult bed, which is a crucial safety rule applicable if the mother were to leave the bed while the older child is still there with the infant. So B reflects both the lack of evidence on multiple sharers and a relevant standing safety rule.
Okay, acknowledges the uncertainty, but flags a known rule.
Exactly.
And for our final question,